Hey guys, thanks for coming to the Team 360 call. Today is June 27th, 2016, and we have a great treat for you tonight. We did have another call scheduled, but we changed it up because I know this is going to be worth your time. So we have Aubrey on the line tonight. She is actually a coach under one of my coaches, which is Sarah Bobbitt, who's on the call too. And she came to Tony Robbins Unleash Your Power Within, which is where I've been. And we've had 50 hours of intense training in the last 4 days. We've barely slept, but let me tell you guys, it was worth it. It was so amazing and life-changing, and I can't even describe what happened in the past 4 days, but I've invested a lot in personal development. I've done a lot of seminars, I've done a lot of events, and the reason I've done them is because they always pay me back tenfold. Every single one of them, I've always gotten something out of it. This one I got a lot out of, but I just want to say real quick how important it is to get to live events. I know it can be a sacrifice of time and money, but it's worth it. My first year as a coach, I didn't have any money, but I knew that the decisions, I had made up to that point hadn't gotten me to where I wanted to be, and I needed to take a step of bold faith. And I made the decision and I went to Summit, and that changed my family's life. And then I also did another event that year with Shailene. And I've continued to do those events. And, I'm making more money, but back then I wasn't making enough. And I'm also investing my time. And I encourage you guys to do the same. If you are going to Summit, you should give yourself a big pat on the back, because if you go to Summit with an open mind and open ears, it will change your business. For the better. Nobody comes out of Summit and says that was a huge waste of time. Live events are so important. It's not anything you can get behind your computer. So make it happen if you are going, and make sure you go, like I said, go with the intention to learn. But anyway, this event was amazing, got way more than I bargained for. And I know Aubrey did as well. So I want her to share her experience with you. And also, Aubrey, if you could share kind of where you have been at in your business personally, I think that would be really valuable for a lot of people on the line here. So go ahead.
Okay. Hi, guys. So let me start out with where I was. So I am an Emerald coach. I have been an Emerald coach for about 2.5 years. And I got into this business with the thought of it making me some extra money and helping my family out. I am an ICU nurse, and I guess in a sense, the money wasn't a big enough motivation for me, because I make enough money to take care of our family, and I wasn't in that inspiration or desperation kind of situation. So I really have been trying to find something deeper to motivate me. When I first started as a coach, I lost about 30 pounds, and felt great, and it slowly kind of creeped back on. And so when I found myself the last 8 months or so, I had gained back all of the weight that I lost, and then some. And I was just in a really bad place, and it was really hard to be a coach to others when I felt like I wasn't even doing what I was telling them to do. It made me feel like a fake. And so in this very bad place, I really honestly hadn't been doing a lot of the team calls or anything. And I, for some reason, one night decided to get on a team call that was for Jesse's team, which is Tanya's upline. And it was actually through Brandy Botts was the one hosting it. And she had someone from Tony Robbins Sorry, my voice is hoarse because we screamed a lot the last 4 days. Anyway, so it was a guy from Tony Robbins Foundation named Dragon, and I can't even tell you exactly what he talked about that night. But in listening to him and the way that he was explaining like human behavior and thought process and how they help people, it spoke to me. And I was like, this is what I'm missing. There's some, like, this will help me. I just knew it. And so in that call, they were offering a special where you could get Tony Robbins' CD set. It's called The Ultimate Edge. It's like a 21-day audio workbook program. And they were offering it for 15 days for a 30-day trial, and then you could return it. And if you didn't want it, then but if you kept it, it was like $300. It was like a $300 program. So I got a hold of, actually the guy got a hold of me to, his name is Michael Annis. He got a hold of me to, what's the word? To see if I was interested in getting that program. And at that point I was like, I really didn't feel like an investment in myself was, I didn't believe in myself enough that spending $300 was going to be worth it. So, but $15, I could do $15. I could check it out for 3 weeks and I could return it. So I did that. And I realized like right away that that was going to be, it was going to change everything. Like, I can't even describe it to you. It was like the mindset. He addresses that. He gets human behavior and human needs and explains to you why you have the mental blocks that you do. So with that program, you get a free a free coaching session. So I called and got my free coaching session and ended up signing up with a life coach. And then I also ended up signing up for UPW, the Unleash the Power Within, which is the life event that we just went to. So done a lot of investment into myself, and I will go through like the blocks that I've kind of had that have kept me where I am right now, and then hopefully that will help some of you. So one of the, sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. There was something else I was going to say. But anyway, so at this, I know what I was going to say. So after like, I think my first or second coaching session, my coach's name is Sue. I had the reset sitting in my cupboard for probably like 2 months. And I was scared to start it because every time I had done it before, I had gone back to like my bad eating habits. And I was like, why do it if I'm just going to end up gaining back the weight? So I was so inspired by talking to her. And I was like, I just started believing in myself again. And so I did it. And I lost like 15 pounds. And I lost another 5 since then. So I've lost like 20 pounds since April. This weekend has been like the icing on the top of the cake. Like I'm a very analytical person. Like I like rules and things like in certain orders. And I tend to put my emotions for things on the back burner. And a lot of it I figured out was because of my job. When you're dealing with something very traumatic, it's hard to be that focused clinician and be an emotional support for a family member. And sometimes it's just too much. And so it's really easy to just put off that emotion. So this whole event brought out like getting to feel again. And I don't know how else to describe that. Like, instead of sitting there and being worried about what everybody thought, I realized we're all kind of like in the same boat. We all have like an amazing amount of self-doubt and fears, and we just don't talk about them, not really, not deeply. And And I gave myself permission to start feeling again and to start being open again. So let me see, where do I start? Gosh. So one of the first things was like processing your fears, and like he had us all kind of talk about what are our biggest fears and just like start brainstorming. So I was like writing down stuff, and like the things that came out of my brain out of nowhere were like kind of shocking to me. So like one of them was being afraid of success. And I was like, why am I afraid to succeed? That seems crazy. Like, of course I want to succeed. Who doesn't want to succeed? And I realized it wasn't even like a conscious thought, but I had been always feeling like my family, my grandparents especially, were very very poor people. They had a farm, they lived off their land, and they were very good people. And I always had this thought that if that was enough for them, then if I wanted more than that, I was being a greedy person. And that made me not as good as them. And so somehow like would be disappointing them. And once I realized that I had that like deep inside of me and hadn't even like acknowledged that, I was like, oh my gosh, like I know that they would be so proud of me. They would want me to do everything that I ever could to try to be successful. Like they would never want me to be held back. Like, why would I have that inside of me? I don't know, but I did. And it was like one of these deep seated beliefs that if you succeed too much, then you're just, you're greedy. You're not as good of a person as you could be if you were happy with just being in love or, with life. So, so that was one fear. And of course, rejection and failure, which all kind of goes back to, this need of being connected and feeling love from other people. One of the things that kind of came out too, and this is probably one of my biggest fears, was disappointing other people. So I realized like, I don't have a fear of sending invites. That doesn't bother me. It's when somebody responds back. And then I have to talk to them about I'm afraid that they'll say yes, because I'm afraid that if I don't end up doing what they need, that I'm failing them. And then I'm not good enough for them. And so then I'm not good enough. And that also sounds crazy to say out loud, but that's really like what was deep inside of me. And I don't, if any of you guys know my husband, Johnny, he's amazing. And he and I are like I have such an amazing marriage with him. And I realized that I was limiting all of my love and my connection and my needs to just being through him. I don't have a lot of friends. I have like people that I work with that I get along with, and I have, but I don't really hang out with anybody. I don't go and connect with people a lot. And I realized I was doing that so that I didn't have to connect with people, so that I wasn't then exposing myself. And you can't do this business without connecting to people and developing those relationships. You can't just be focused on the money and you're not going to get anywhere. You know what I mean? So I was like creating this whole like block of, I don't want to get to know you because I might get hurt. Like, no, that's not going to work. Like, why? So my breakthrough was I was having a scarcity mentality. I was thinking that there was only so much love and that's all I needed, and that was enough. And why would I not want more connection and more love in my life and more friends and enjoyment like that? And when I'm 85 and sitting on, one of the things Tony was teaching us was about, imagine sitting on the rocking chair on your front porch when you're 85 years old and you're looking back at your life. What do you want to have seen for, all those years before? And I wanted to see, hundreds of people that I've made connections with. And I don't have that right now. I have 1,300 Facebook friends, but I haven't connected with most of them, Like, would they come to my funeral? Probably not. Not all of them. Not a lot of them, you know? So, so that was a really, really big one for me. Let me see. That was, okay. So then, another thing that, oh, I already said that one. Sorry, hold on a second. So I realized that really what I wanted wasn't so much all the money. It was to have this legacy of love and my friends and connections and helping people change their lives. And I always had a hard time, you know, I love helping people, like in that moment when I've met somebody and I have that connection with them and helping them. But, you know, before this weekend, when I'd say, I want to help others in their business and in losing weight, like it wasn't something I really felt like I was really connected with because I didn't know them. And so it was easier to focus on making money because, or the idea of making money, I should say, because it didn't have to, because I didn't have to make that connection with people. Does that make sense? And then, so all of a sudden when I was able to think about it in terms of helping people, because I will have an abundance of love and connections in my life, that's like totally has changed it in my mind. When the first night we got there, we all got in, well, Tanya and I got in pretty late. And so we met up with the rest of the group who was all sitting in Jesse's room, and they were explaining why they were here. And as I was listening to these stories, most of the people I didn't even know, that's when I realized, like, I honestly, I don't even think I told Tanya this, but like when I went into this, I kind of was thinking like, I'll sleep in the room and then I'm just going to go to the meetings and I'm going to figure out my own shit. And then, you know, not have to talk to these people because it scares me to talk to them because I'm scared to be that exposed and they'll judge me and they'll think bad about me. And, you know, and as I sat there and listened to everyone's stories, I realized we all have so much shit in our heads going on, you know? So that's when I started being able to open myself to those connections. And as we were sitting there, the last thing was Brad had put together a video to say thank you to Jessie. And knowing that she isn't very good about receiving presents or gifts or anything. And so she sat there and she watched it. And I was the one that was sitting there bawling because I realized that I wanted to be her. And I didn't want to be her because of all the money she made. I wanted to be her because I wanted to be the one sitting there and hearing that video of all the thank yous and how much you changed somebody's life. And to know that I've found that deep connection within me is pretty amazing. There was a lot of crying this weekend too. I actually didn't wear mascara for pretty much the whole time because like everybody's just bawling all the time. He really makes you connect with all of his concepts on an emotional level. Because when you connect emotion to the concepts, like it makes it so much more real. And there was a lot of music, a lot of jumping. It was like being at a dance club at 9 a.m. and it was pretty awesome. And it really got your energy going. So you'd get into like what he called a peak state, where you're just like, you're wide awake and you're like, yeah, let's do this. And then you sit down and you're listening to him and it's just like, you're so in the moment. It's not even like he teaches all the same concepts on the Ultimate Edge program, but being there in person and feeling that energy was amazing. Amazing. And then the last thing I kind of want to talk about was the process of going through your limiting beliefs. So even identifying what my limiting beliefs were it's definitely not big. It wasn't like something that you can just sit down and be like, oh, I know what's stopping me. Like, you don't know until you start thinking about it. And he kind of walks you through this process of figuring that out. And so what I figured out was, one of the things that I was always telling myself in the back of my mind was that I'm not a businesswoman. I grew up, my dad owned his own business, and he lost it. And when he lost it, he lost everything. We lost our house. We lost our cars. We went from living in this amazing house out in the woods in Sandy on 5 acres, like a 3-story house, to living in a 3-bedroom apartment in Gresham, where I had to share a bedroom with my 2 teenage sisters. We're all teenagers in one little bedroom. And because my dad had to have an office for a business that just failed, and watching the gang fights out in the parking lot and stuff. I mean, it was like the idea of owning my own business scared the shit out of me because that's why I always was like, I'm going to have a secure job where I have a guaranteed paycheck, and I will never have to deal with that. And luckily, I found a job that I love as a nurse. But it always kept me of thinking about being a business owner. Like, that is too risky. That's too much to do. That's not safe. And I'm not a businesswoman anyway. So why would I can't do it like they can, which is a total lie that I tell myself. If anybody can do this, I can do it. Right. I do always feel like I had this determination of, if I set my mind to something, that I will do it. I don't like being told I can't do something. So that's probably the only thing that's kept me from quitting being a coach in the first place, was that I had that determination within me. And then another limiting belief is always been that I'm not leadership material. Especially when it comes to health and fitness. Like, nobody in my family is fit or healthy in any way, shape, or form. And because I've always struggled with it, and I never had a role model in that, I guess I just felt like I never had anybody to emulate. And in the last couple of months, when I was really at my lowest point, I didn't want to run a challenge group anymore. And I had 2 or 3 girls that were like, I need you to run this. You must run this. And that was literally the only reason I did a challenge group, was for them, because they kind of made me. And I'm so glad they did. It kept me going. But it made me realize that at least these 2 people think of me as a leader. And if I can do that for them, then I can keep going, and I can keep going, and I can keep going. And in the last 2 months, one of them, well, it might be 3 months now, but she's lost 30 pounds. And the other one has lost 15, 20 pounds. Those 2 girls have been what keeps me going, for real. And they made me realize, and then all of, this whole experience has made me realize I can be a leader. I am a leader. I just wasn't believing in myself. And then this has probably been one of my biggest shifts too, is I realized that I always felt like it was me against the world. My whole family has always been very paranoid and skeptical of people in general. I don't know if other people have that experience, but my grandpa would never leave the farm because he was afraid somebody was going to come and steal all his stuff, or, I always had this sense that people had to prove themselves worthy of my attention before I would give it to them. They had to prove themselves to me that I could pay attention to them. But then I wouldn't let them have the chance to prove to me that they could be accepted. Does that make sense? I don't know. So it was just a way for my brain to keep people at bay. So when I would just meet random strangers. Like I wouldn't connect with them because they haven't proven themselves to me. And I don't want to give them the time to prove themselves to me as being worthy of my attention. Like, it's just a stupid mindset. And so I seriously, like, I have made more connections in the last 4 days than I have probably in the last year, at least. Like, truly just talking and being interested in someone and wanting to know about them. And it is such an amazing feeling to do that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Those were really the big things. The last day was about health. And it was interesting because a lot of that, I think, was kind of, Tanya and I kind of felt like, you know, stuff we already knew because of what we do, but I could see if you were not a Beachbody coach, that it would be a lot of information. So he talked a lot about like dairy products and eating meat, and also the pairing the right kinds of foods with things, which I'm going to do a little bit more research into. But I think that my biggest takeaways were challenging my limiting beliefs, coming up with my deep emotional why, letting myself come up with that, and being able to reconnect with the world again. That's it. What do you think, Tanya?
That was awesome.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, that was awesome. What can you talk a little bit about walking over
the coals.
hot coals
Oh my
and
goodness.
all the people that got burned?
That was so crazy. So, you know, we're like, when you're at this event, I mean, it is like from early morning until like, I think the latest we were there one night was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then you're like back at like 8 or 9 in the morning. Like, it's just kind of crazy. So you're in order to truly engage, you're like not really paying attention to the outside world. And I remember one of the mornings he came in and he had told us about like how the Dow had crashed, and like the England had like seceded from the, you know what I mean? With the, yeah, I'm like with the euros, that thing, whatever. Anyway, and all that was going on, but all I was seeing in my news feed was that Tony Robbins was like burning all these people at the stake practically, and all these people had to be rushed to the hospital and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that wasn't even like really what happened. So I guess I just went into it with the mindset that if, you know, like hundreds of thousands of people have done it before me, it's probably okay. Like they probably know what they're doing. So I wasn't so afraid of it, but I know and especially after doing like Tough Mudder, Sarah, I'm sure can identify with this. After jumping into muddy water with your shoes on and feeling like you're going to drown, like walking on coals didn't seem so bad. So I wasn't so freaked out about it, but apparently everybody, that was not at the event was extremely freaked out about it, because I got tagged in about 50,000 different articles about how all these people got rushed to the hospital. So this is what really happened at the firewalk. So they start this whole fire and they get all the coals going, and then they lay down some grass. They have it soaked in water. And then they have the coals in a wheelbarrow. And so they'll shovel it on. They wait till the color goes away, and then you walk across them. So yeah, it was warm. I'm not going to lie. There were a couple of people that got like maybe like a sunburn kind of degree burn. And Deanna was in our group. She probably had one of the worst burns. Mm-hmm. And she was like, it's not a big deal. I'm not really worried about it. From what I understood, she felt like the ambulance driver was like kind of making her go to the hospital. So finally she was like, whatever, if I get some pain medicine, then it won't hurt so bad. Okay. Like it wasn't.
Well, he told her, I was there. He told her if she ever wanted to walk again.
Oh my God.
And then she went to the emergency, and they're like, you're okay.
Why did you come here?
Yeah. Because I was standing right there, and the guy's like, yeah, if you ever want to walk again. Because he was just annoyed. The fact is, there were like 5 people that actually really got burned.
Mm-hmm.
And there was reasons for it. Deanna admitted you go into it with Peak State, and what happened was Deanna was up and some lady cut her off. So what happened, this is really symbolic, you guys, so listen to this. Peak State, ready to go. She's like, I'm going to do this. Somebody cuts her off and she gets pissed. She's like, that girl just cut me off. Goes out of Peak State, goes immediately into Defense State, steps on the coal, and what do you think happened? Burned her feet because she allowed somebody who cut her off to affect her. You can't do that. Same thing in this business. And I think that is very symbolic. The other thing that came out of that is she got burned, and she even said this, like, she doesn't let her husband take care of her. She was a single mom. She had some issues in her childhood, and a single mom for a long time. And then her husband came along, and she has a hard time letting other people take care of her. I mean, he does take care of her, but she's like resistant in letting people take care of her. She's like, I can do everything on my own. But she had to let him and the rest of us help her. And she said that was the most profound experience for her at the event. And there wasn't like a ton of people that were how they talked. I got my picture taken and I wasn't burned. I had dirty feet though.
Yeah.
My husband did it, and the guy can't even walk around the house barefoot, and he'll even get on like he's the biggest wuss, and he did it. It was really cool though, because you feel like a total badass when you walk across and you're done and you're like, ooh. But there was only like 5 people that truly got, like badly burned, but it wasn't, like, no, they're fine. They're going to walk.
Yeah.
And
that like,
for that, cause she's an ICU nurse.
Yeah. It was like, she did ride in a wheelchair, but like by the 3rd day, but that wasn't because her feet were hurting so bad she couldn't walk on them. Is because she was kind of walking funny and her back hurt really bad. So she was letting people take care of her. So that was awesome.
Yeah, the whole event was so cool. Aubrey, thank you so much for sharing. I think it's incredible that here Aubrey was in a bad place, and she shared with us where she was. And, she got on that call and got the coaching, and she was just going to do her free session. And she even said, she told me that she delayed it. I didn't even know she was getting coaching from Tony Robbins' coach until
I was embarrassed to tell anyone, honestly.
Yeah, she didn't tell anybody. And
it really was.
And then I saw her on the roster, and I'm like, Aubrey's going? So she just totally, but honestly, no matter where you are in life or your business, everybody went away with something different, and a lot. And all of us have, as Aubrey said, like stuff we're dealing with and limiting beliefs. And he teaches you how to break through those because, the brain, he said, is designed for survival. If you think about it, your instincts, like back, you're designed to survive. You're designed to cut off the pain, but sometimes the pain of being rejected or failing is actually what is going to propel you in life, and it's going to help you break through. One of the things that I realized is one of the most painful experiences in my life is actually one of the reasons I'm where I'm at today. And that was, we lost, our business, we lost our home, we lost our cars. Like what Aubrey was describing, like that's what happened to our family, my husband and I. But at the same time, we also had a sick child, and she was sick, very sick for 4 years. She's the reason that I am who I am today. Because without what happened, that painful experience where I didn't think I was going to survive, she's who showed me how strong I can be and how amazing, this life is if you just stop living in that suffering world and break free. And Allie, truly, her being sick and us losing our business. Now, I would never want my daughter to be sick, trust me, but that's just the fact of what happened. And Tony says life happens for you, not to you. And her being sick and showing me how strong she was, and for me to have to be that strong is really what, is why I'm even in Beachbody. I would not be here. I would still be in on the hamster wheel trying to make money, like in the other position that I was in, and just limited. My family wouldn't have what they have, and I would be, and it's not about the money, but it's truly about being mentally free. I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Being mentally free is the biggest gift. But I just think, like, looking at the stuff that's happened and really thinking about what is, I always talk about what's your message out of your mess, and what can you take away from that? He said, people hit plateaus and they're like, oh, I'm just going to quit. Or, they look at it as a bad thing, but actually a plateau is like, okay, look at it and say, all right, cool. What are we going to do about this? Like, what are we going to do about this? Let's change something. And so we're not plateaued. And he shared story after story after story of people that, hit those plateaus or had something bad happen. And, Tony Robbins, actually, somebody embezzled from him, and he was on the verge of bankruptcy. I don't remember how many years ago that was, but it was after he was a millionaire and almost lost everything. And then he had to go and be like, all right, he was mad, and he described the story, but then he was like, all right, what do I have to do for this? And what can you imagine if he would have just taken it and said, all right, I'm a failure, I'm going to walk away, we're done. How many people he wouldn't affect? There were 8,000 people in that event, and the guy speaks around the world in how many countries? Like 100 countries.
Yeah,
all year round. Mm-hmm. He's a machine. And he's not doing it for the money. He does it to help people. But could you imagine if he would have said at that moment, I'm done. I'm going to go do something else, and not push through, how all these millions of people he wouldn't have affected, who are affecting other people. Like Aubrey straight up is going to work her business now. And you think about,
I already have started. Yeah. I put out an ad on Facebook for a free 5-day group so I could give people something and just make those connections,
And her and I are just two of the millions of people and that are going out and helping people. So are you going to be one of those people, or are you going to stay stuck in your own, your own plateau and your own mess and just give up? And I think that was the biggest thing for me is, the legacy that you're leaving and the amount of people that you're helping. Like, people always say, oh, it's not about rank. It's not about rank. No, it's not. But your rank shows how many people you've helped. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. It's the honest to God truth. Mm-hmm. When you turn diamond, you have affected at minimum 12 people. 12 people. And they've affected other people. And that's not including the customers. Each of those people represent someone you've helped. So when you sit there and you say, it's not about rank, it's not about rank, it kind of is, because they represent how many people you help. And it goes up. And as you go up, you're affecting more people who are in turn affecting more. And, I think about the fact that if I would have given up when I thought about quitting, that I've helped, I think like 3,000, I had like 3,000 customers, and I have like almost 2,000 person downline. And that's not including the people that rotate through that have quit. And that's like 5,000 people in 4.5 years. That's a lot of people. And I just encourage you to do the same. I know a lot of you are doing that, and I think it's awesome. But those of you that are sitting there thinking like, oh, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, get out of your head. Stop limiting it. Because if I can, you can. Like Aubrey said, we're doing it. You can do it too. And I think that if you get an opportunity to go to Tony Robbins, take it, because it was life-changing, and Summit will be life-changing. I would never recommend something I didn't think was worth it. That is why I went to UPW for Tony Robbins before I advised the team to go, because I always make sure it's worth the time and investment. I do that as a leader. And it just so happened Aubrey came too, so it was super fun. But I don't recommend things that I don't do myself. I would never do that to you guys. I truly believe it's worth it. I believe Summit is worth it. I believe Super Saturday is worth going to. I always get excuses, and you guys know how I feel about excuses. So I just look at it as, you gave up. Sorry. But it's the truth, because I want you guys to be successful in whatever you choose to do, but don't limit your minds. Like, get into your head and tell that voice to shut up. and stop listening to it, because that's what's holding you back. Go out and live who you were created to be. Tony said something that literally, and this is pretty hard to do, but it literally caused me to stop breathing for a few minutes, like a few seconds, literally took my breath away. He said, to say you don't have gifts is to slap your creator in the face. And that to me was huge, because as somebody who believes in God, and to say that you're not worthy and that you don't have what it takes and that you don't have gifts, you're saying that God made a mistake, and God doesn't make mistakes. So you need to go out and be who you were created to be and who God created you to be. Otherwise, it is a slap in the face. And I did a run out in the midday heat in Dallas today in 100-degree weather, and I was thinking about that and listening to Amazing Grace came on, and I literally thought I was going to pass out. I know it's not smart to run in that weather. Doing Hood to Coast in August, so I have to learn how to run in heat. And Amazing Grace came on, and I just had tears coming down my eyes listening to what God did for us and what Jesus sacrificed. And now to say you don't have a gift and you're not worthy and you're not capable and you're a failure, it's not right, you guys. And I just know that when he said that to me, it made a big impact. It made a huge impact because I could not breathe. And it still like gives me like that. So think about that next time you're thinking that you're not good enough or you're not worthy. Is, whoever you believe in, if it's the universe or God or whoever, you're slapping your creator right in the face and saying they made a mistake and they didn't. So I'm going to leave you with that. And I want to thank Aubrey for sharing her heart tonight. And I want to, just say, good job. I know it was a huge investment of time and money. And I know it paid off because I saw this light come on in her during the event. Like she got there, she was kind of like closed off, and then I could see this light just like coming out of her by the, mid part of it. And it was just an amazing experience. So I hope you guys have a good evening, and thanks again for coming.
Oh,
yes.
Can I say one more thing? I believe that I would highly, I cannot highly enough suggest getting the Ultimate Edge. It's audio and a book. And when I ordered it, what Michael told me was, he was like, so do you have iTunes? And I said, yeah. And he's like, did you know you could download these CDs onto iTunes? And then, if you don't want the CDs, you can return them. So that honestly was probably a big convincer for me, because I knew that my investment could be just $15. And I ended up purposely keeping them because I never want to let these CDs go. Like if something happens to my iTunes account, I don't care. I have the CDs. I can listen to them. I've really listened to nothing else. I'm like on my third time through them. And each time I'm picking up, I'm making breakthroughs in my own mindset. So I would highly suggest getting that. I have his contact information. So, or Tanya does too. So we can get you in contact with him.
Yeah, just let either one of us know and we'll get you in contact. He's a really nice guy. And it's a great program. I've done it and I love it. And like Aubrey says, you just keep listening to it. I think Jesse's listened to it like 4 or 5 times too.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you for saying that. If you're interested, why don't you put your email under the recording, or because some of you are going to listen to the recording, and I'll have him email you, or you can message Aubrey or I, and we'll get you his info. All right, everybody. Thanks again. Have a good evening. Thank you, Aubrey.
All right. Thank you. Okay, bye.